Hello and welcome to this Thursday's morning market briefing. We've got lots to talk about, but firstly, Joe Biden and Xi Jinping meet in effort to stabilise relations, and this obviously is in relation to, the tensions within the South China Sea. As well as that, we've got lots to talk about on the charts also, with lots happening on the economic calendar. And another article that I forgot to mention as well that we'll cover is the Israeli military raids Gaza's largest hospital in the climax of the siege, so that would be important to cover as well. Before we get straight into it, make sure to subscribe. But yes, the first article to talk about is Joe Biden and Xi Jinping. Now, Joe Biden and Xi Jinping are holding a high-profile summit in San Francisco, and this comes in a bid to stabilize US-China relations following growing worries over Taiwan. Now, this is a topic that we actually started off the week talking about and kind of summarizing and trying to understand and see how that might relate to the markets. At the start of this week, we did highlight the possibility of this meeting going ahead. That said, we weren't completely sure on whether the meeting was going ahead for quite some time. After all, the last time that the two were supposed to meet, Xi Jinping did pull out, and this was during the India's G20 summit. And so these kind of planned meetings, but then they don't really go ahead, are quite common, and therefore we weren't kind of necessarily saying that okay, this is definitely going to happen. But seeing this now materialize, seeing this meet take place does put a good kind of image for Joe Biden's relations management, and it does kind of calm the very, very high kind of world tensions that we've been seeing. Not only have we encountered within the last 2 years the war in Ukraine, but as well as that, now the conflict taking place in Israel and Palestine. And so seeing kind of some effort to stabilize relations globally, this time in relation to Taiwan, does kind of hint to us that things pardon me could be on the move for the better. And we may even see that in the gold markets when we come to that near the end of the video, so make sure you stay around to see that. But with Washington saying it was focusing on managing the risks of any further deterioration in the relationship and preventing the conflict within Taiwan as a whole. And this is something that's obviously been on the radar of many people for years now, is the possibility of China invading Taiwan, which would be almost a similar kind of picture and kind of the same sort of thing that we did end up seeing materialize with Russia's invasion into Ukraine. That was another long feared, long expected invasion by larger economic and military power into one of its old territories, that being Ukraine. And from that, we obviously saw the great economic fallout and kind of fallout within the markets as well. But that's also the same that could happen with any invasion into Taiwan, which is why when we see these kind of tensions go rampant, when we see these tensions rise, we do end up seeing gold prices, oil prices, other commodities really go up in value as people start to hedge themselves against a massive world war or an increase in world tensions, which may affect markets and supply chains. Because as we know, China is a key leader in the base of many US product supply chains. As we know, they're trying to diversify away from that. That may be a topic actually brought up within these meetings, but this is obviously something to note, of course. With Biden telling Xi, we have to ensure that competition does not lead to conflict. The US really has been kind of engaging, as well as China, of course, engaging in this really kind of worrying rhetoric around possible escalations within the South China Sea, especially within going into next year's election year. Both sides may really promise to be a harder line on China. We've already seen that with Donald Trump, his kind of hard line on China, his kind of fearless approach to trade wars kind of led himself into and led the American people into more of a confrontational kind of partnership almost with China, of course. And now we have other kind of Trump-like figures within the Republican Party as well, espousing the same sort of rhetoric. So we've got Vivek Ramaswamy and, of course, Ron DeSantis. But, we can't even isolate this to a Republican Party kind of thing. We have to remember that Joe Biden himself, a Democrat, has been implementing many of these anti-China protectionist policies that might usually actually expect from someone like Donald Trump. As we know, the kind of restrictions on microchip expansion and selling microchips made in the US into China, as well as other investment bans within China, which were implemented by Joe Biden. And, these kind of rising tensions that we have seen between the two nations, obviously, have been continually piled on by these kind of quite quick jabs at one another, I guess, with their militaries going head to head in very short periods of time, and not real obviously skirmishes, but kind of jabs at one another. So we saw obviously the Chinese spy balloon being shot down over the US, and often we do hear about conflicts with US drones flying too close to China's airspace. So it's kind of seeing this, understanding this, and understanding how these sorts of meetings may affect the gold markets. Of course, as a more stable world, we will see gold kind of lower generally as a result of kind of gold being that safe haven asset. Now, Biden also added the countries could work together on issues such as AI and climate change. Xi raised the grave problems persisting following the tremendous impacts of COVID, because as we know, that's been tremendously impacting the Chinese economy, damaging their supply chains, which really are the key thing which China stands out for, is their production. And the effects that it's already had on the property markets has damaged investment as well in that in China, noting issues in relation to industrial supply chains as a result of interruption and tariffs, of course, with Xi stating planet Earth is big enough for the two countries to succeed. And this is Biden's second meeting with Xi within and will last 4 hours, and the two are expected to discuss the concerns over Chinese military action around Taiwan, as well as their growing nuclear arsenal. So China's growing nuclear arsenal, with Xi bringing up Biden's microchip exports most likely as well. Now, the National Security Council spokesperson also said Biden would raise concerns over the Uyghur mistreatment and abuses. As we know, there's reports of concentration camps holding Uyghur Muslims in the Xinjiang region of China, which is found more so in the West. And this will be something that's very interesting to see how it's brought up, because it's seen as quite a significant issue, but it's kind of glossed over within the international political sphere. Now, Xi will also meet American business leaders at a San Francisco dinner, and this is something that we noted going into the week in the weekly market briefing, where we mentioned the possibility of Tim Cook attending that meeting, as well as the head of Apple. Now, modest agreements between the two leaders are expected to be reached, such as reopening military communications channels with China, and we've already seen China already beginning to crack down on the fentanyl exports from China, which obviously forms the kind of fentanyl production within Mexico, which is then smuggled into the US. So it's obviously a key issue for the US. Now, concerns over a Taiwan conflict have eased in recent months after top officers were told to stop issuing public predictions about when a Chinese attack may occur. So keep your eyes on this topic. Very important to keep note of in relation to world tensions. Next to talk about, we'll cover this one quickly, just so we can get onto the charts soon enough. But Israel's military raids Gaza's largest hospital in climax of siege, and this has been something that we've been talking about, covering and staying on top of, as this is a very sad conflict to be seeing take place. And we've been hearing warnings across the world of, humanitarian crisis which has been ensuing as a result. Now, Israeli troops are now searching Gaza's largest hospital in a targeted operation against Hamas, and this is following concerns over the patients inside the hospital. We've been hearing those concerns from those within Gaza, Gaza, hospital workers, as well as other journalists within the area, and UN officials. Now, Israel says that Al-Shifa hospital is home to Hamas's command centers which are underground, with a senior IDF official saying concrete evidence has already been discovered that this hospital was acting as sort of a base for Hamas operations. Israel has kind of explained this time and time again that Hamas has been able to kind of embed their military infrastructure underground, under these major kind of residential areas, as a result kind of protecting them from IDF strikes. And this is why we're now seeing the Israeli military enter the hospital to try and clear out those sort of areas, with medical staff, with the IDF soldiers reportedly killing a number of terrorists on entry inside, with medical staff reporting of loud sounds of fighting inside the hospital, with the Al-Shifa emergency supervisor saying the medical team had already been interrogated. And obviously this raises concerns over who will now be considered a kind of Hamas operative or not, when we are seeing kind of this blur of the line and distinction between the two, as a result of kind of the conflict taking place in such a residential area. Now, thousands have been sheltered at the hospital, with Al-Shifa stopping functions on the weekend due to a lack of fuel, and we obviously covered that, and this is obviously following Israel shutting off fuel, water and food supplies into Gaza following their invasion into the territory. Now, IDF has said it's delivered medical equipment to the hospital, including incubators and baby food. On the other side of that, with a person familiar with Israel's and their allies' conversations, saying that IDF would be willing to consider an operational pause following taking control of the entire Al-Shifa hospital. And this has been something that's actually been commented on and stated by the US Secretary of State, I believe, Antony Blinken. I may have got his role wrong there, but he, a leading figure in representing the US's views within this conflict, has reiterated numerous times that he is looking for temporary humanitarian pauses within the conflict to enable civilians to get out better and aid to flow in, and we may now be seeing that. A pause would of course be essential for any hostage releases from Hamas, and talks between Qatar and Israel are reportedly underway for the release of 50 hostages, with an agreement including the delivery of aid into Gaza and Hamas prisoners into Israel, and Hamas prisoners in Israel back into Gaza, being on the table. So it'll be interesting to see how this develops as well. Of course, any de-escalations will affect the markets, and any escalations, as we did see when this conflict started, will massively affect the market. So keep your eyes on this. Next to talk about though is the charts, of course. Sorry, I don't know why this is happening. There we are. Sorry about that. But yes, first to talk about is the US 30 and US indices. So we have seen this strong bullish momentum for some time now on US indices, with the US 30 taking a rise since the start of November, and we've seen this kind of continuing bullish momentum. Yes, some consolidation, but now we really are seeing the continuation of that bullish momentum, obviously following the US inflation reading that came out yesterday, not yesterday, 2 days ago, which did note that inflation was lower than many had predicted, and therefore started to see investors and market makers did start to price in those lower levels of inflation by predicting the Fed to lower rates sooner than expected. Obviously, if rates come down, more liquidity, more credit for businesses, and that's why we're seeing the US 30 now take a rise as investors predict better credit for many of these companies. But on the contrary, following that data, we did see the dollar take a tumble to the downside, as we saw from the 106 level, the dollar falling down, reaching the 104 level actually, where we had highlighted before a strong area of liquidity. Price since then, yesterday, did react to that significantly, taking a strong move to the upside and now beginning an almost retracement possibly. And obviously the 50% Fibonacci level does stand out to us right here, just simply down to the fact that it's in line with this kind of strong area of liquidity. As we can see here, it's been made as a strong area of support prior, and this Fibonacci retracement tool is giving that level of 50% around that area as well. So that's definitely a possibility, of course, to be highlighted as an area which could see price retrace up to and then continue a bearish trend to the downside. But obviously this would rely on the kind of sentiment for the Fed to remain dovish. So that's what we would really be looking out for, to see the dollar continue to the downside. And in the short term, to see this retracement take place, we'd be looking to see any short-term kind of positive or negative actually news about the US economy, which may encourage actual hawkish positions by the Fed. So keep your eyes on this. But next to talk about is the euro, which obviously relates to the dollar. But because we're seeing that kind of retracement now to the upside on dollar, we are seeing that retracement down on the the bearish side for euro USD. If we are looking at areas which price could retrace down to, obviously there is the 50% Fibonacci area, which is in line with this other area of liquidity here. But the kind of 61.80 area does look significant as well. Just keep your eyes on this to see how it functions. We did break out of this bullish channel, of course, and price is very volatile. Now, pound yen is also important to note, which has seen that bullish momentum in recent days and weeks. However, now it is sort of consolidating after that strong push that we did see going into this week. We did highlight yesterday some areas which could see price retrace down to, but we haven't quite reached those areas yet. We did see that slight sell-off and consolidation now, but the question still remains, where might price retrace down to, if it does even. So keep your eyes on this. Next to talk about though is USD JPY, which has been incredibly volatile for the past few weeks, just incredibly volatile. And following the week movements by price on Tuesday, we have now seen that strong bullish reaction to this Fibonacci level of 50% and this strong area of liquidity yesterday. And from there, we saw price take a strong move to the upside, reaching levels of 151.4. So positive for USD JPY, but then again, price hasn't been able to continue a trend to the upside since it wasn't really able to break that prior high. Therefore, how significant really is this? Will USD JPY continue to the upside? Maybe, maybe not. So keep your eyes on this. Bitcoin's a very important, interesting asset, more like, to note at the moment. After all, yesterday we did highlight, this area that acted as a really strong area of resistance for price for quite some time, and this was sitting on the $35,000 mark. And we now have seen price retrace down to it and react in a very, very significant fashion from that area. Now, I don't believe it's in line. Oh, well, no, it is with the 78.6% Fibonacci area. So, a strong area of support for price to bounce off. And now we are seeing that continuation to the upside. The question is, however, will we be able to break those prior highs? If we are, we do have the possibility of making our way up to that Fibonacci extension of minus 27.2. So keep your eyes on that. Next to talk about though is gold, which has seen that kind of bullish reaction from this 38.2% Fibonacci area and liquidity level, but seemingly yesterday has taken a negative reaction from this 61.80 short-term Fibonacci retracement level. And this is a really interesting situation to note, because it's likely also in line with the easing tensions in relation to Israel and Gaza, and also Joe Biden and Xi Jinping, as we are having those kind of talks with Joe Biden and Xi Jinping taking place, easing the tensions, global tensions, which may, have originally caused investors to invest in gold. And we are seeing sort of easing tensions in relation to Israel, because we are now hearing about the possibility of those humanitarian pauses. We're hearing about the possible release of more hostages, and we're also hearing about the public sentiment of supporting the current offensive into Gaza by Israel is declining within the US, with many more now supporting a ceasefire, and so we're likely to even see a ceasefire take place as a result of that. So it's we have had these short-term fundamental news events which have pushed price to the downside on gold as a result of global tensions. However, if we then do see some continuation of some dovish looking US data, then we are likely to see a continuation to the upside. But that's all to talk about on the charts. Next to talk about is is the economic calendar, with the first bit of data coming out today. We don't have much data coming out, but first bit of data being Aussie unemployment rate, as well as inflation expectations from consumers. As well as that, we do have Chinese house prices, along with Spanish consumer confidence. An important one, arguably the most important of the day though, will be the ECB's President Lagarde's speech. So listen out for that to understand how the ECB's monetary policy is shaping up. As well as that, we will have numerous Fed officials speaking today, along with the US industrial production figures being released. So some data being released today, but not too much. Hope you have a great trading day, but that's all from us at Wildwood Capital. We've covered a lot on the articles, a lot on the charts, and lots on the economic calendar. Hope you have a great trading day, but that's all from us. See you later. Bye.